Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to another great episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, just finished watching Argentina make their way through to the World Cup final.
Yeah.
I've had a very good day in terms of boxing because I had a chance after school to watch the full fight of what do they call him?
Oh yeah, Inoue, the monster.
The Monster. Yeah. I wanted to use the correct name, the Monster. And to say that we've had two masterclasses in the space of 3 days is an understatement. But we will get into that.
We will indeed. We will indeed. All right. So, for those of you who did see Monday Night Smoke yesterday, Base J has kind of left the building for the moment. I got some good reviews about that. So, if I'm ever called upon again, you might get some of the energy back. But we're back to the breakdown guy, not the controversial guy right about now. So, before we get started, Uncle Jonah, big up to yourself. J Lanks, every time. Dan the man, the hardest working guy on Twitter. It's official. No one can dispute it. I'm now 187. Bless up to you as well. I'm sure more people will be joining the chat soon. But yeah, so without further ado, where do you want to take it first?
You know me, I love the chronological.
Okay, so I guess in that case, we will be starting with the UK cards. I guess because it doesn't, I'm not sure how many people are watching. It says we've got 13. There might be a few more. So if we start with Conan, as I'm assuming most of us don't really want to see the take on that one. And then hopefully by the time we get into the next one, more people would have dropped in. Cool. So we're going to start with Michael Conlan, who I believe was in, he was fighting in Ireland against Karim Guerfi, who last we saw got knocked out by, what's his name? Help me out here. What's the guy's name? The one
I have no idea because I didn't see this guy get knocked out previously.
He got the guy who got knocked out by Kiko Martinez last month. Someone in the chat must know because my brain's blank. David Jordan Gill. Yeah.
Okay.
So Green Gurphy got knocked out by him in February of this year, I think it was, or it was last year. Anyway, it was on the undercard of Lawrence Okoli and Michael Sislak. So,
so the Jordan Gill was this year, 27th of February.
Yeah, that's the one. I remember I was at that show. It was a good fight. I think I still got some of the footage on my phone, especially the DVD. But yeah, so not really much to report on it. Michael Conlan was a 1-round KO. Guerfi's clearly seen better days. There wasn't much left to say about that. I think that Conlan is supposed to now potentially be the next contender for Luis Alberto Lopez, but we can talk about that a little bit later on. Just before we carry on, shout outs to Robert Roney. Shout outs to Black Super Sidebar. Shout out to a man like Yams, only one Yams, Robert Broney, bless up, Ronan Sevens, and Matt J, and A-Ops.
Big up. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Okay, so do you have any thoughts on Conlan?
No, I mean, obviously Gouffre has had losses in the last 5 fights, 2 previous stoppages, so really wasn't expecting much. Conlan just did what he's supposed to do. I'm guessing he probably would have preferred something a little bit stiffer in terms of competition, but you can only do what you've got you've got in front of you. And he did what he was asked to do: go out there, Find your opening. When you see it, take advantage.
You know, the one thing I want to highlight, and this is, I'm not sure if this is good on Conlon's part or if this is a damning indictment on Eddie and Matchroom, but let's not forget, Conlon got knocked out, what was it, March against Lee Wood in Nottingham. I think it was March, because I was there. However, since then, he's come back and he's fought twice. The guy who knocked him out hasn't fought again this whole entire year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a damning indictment.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Talk about like losing momentum. It's yeah, there's certain people you just can't. Anyway, you know what? It's fine. Let's save that for another time. But either way, he needs to get active again. HGM, big up to you, bless up all the time. And who's this? Blizzard 2202. Messi. It definitely was. Right. So, since you put this in here, I'm gonna allow you to talk about Mr. Janaid Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I just put it in because it was one of them fun fights, couple of rounds. Janaid, a name that most people probably haven't heard of, coming out for a little bit of glitter and glam, and putting on a good show. Putting on a very good show, finishing off his opponent. Beautiful left hook there. A perfect display. Certainly, again, we're always on the lookout for up and coming fighters. So if we give you the heads up, that's one again that I would say keep your eyes open. I'm not saying he's the best thing since sliced bread, but I'm just saying the kid looks useful. He might be one to look out for. So good up, well done, Janaid.
Okay. Right. So with that, I think okay, we're probably gonna have to go to the one that I don't want to talk about the most. It's a little raw for me. However, I will be professional. So moving on, we are going to look at Felix Cash versus Kelso Neves. And I will let you talk about this one first, and I will follow your lead.
Cool. So, Felix Cash, for me, I heard your scathing criticism of Felix Cash yesterday, or was it on your weekend wrap? I'm not really sure. But either way,
Jay, it wasn't BaseDaKID, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay. Either way, I'm gonna attempt to agree with you. There was nothing about this fight that was attractive about Felix Cash. Nevis touched him up. This was a case where if my guy has any decent level of power, this is a different fight. But because Cash knows that he's not getting hurt, despite being hit on a regular basis, he's basically prepared to say, you know what, I'll take two of yours to give you one of mine. And his one of mine is significantly harder than the Nevis punch. Could he do that with Inoue Williams? Hell to the N-O. And obviously Inoue Williams is sitting ringside and salivating and thinking to himself, feed me, Eddie. It was just not good. It was just not good. But he gets the win. It wasn't like it was a disputed decision. He deserved the win. But the performance does not give you anything to say, you know what, he's doing good. I mean, I know he's had a layoff, but I'm sorry, but Felix Cash to me is I think on the slide. For him to beat Inoue Williams, he's going to have to reverse the trend of his performances and become some kind of caged animal again.
Okay. So, all right. My non-emotional response to the performance, bearing in mind that it did quite cost me a substantial amount of money, him not finishing his food. What I will say, first two rounds was literally, there was nothing. It was basically, it was throwing punches for the sake of throwing punches. Nothing was being set up. He was just loading up, thinking that he's just gonna knock this guy out. Now, to be honest, while none of us knew who Kelso Neves was, you can kind of just look at his frame, look at the guard that he had, and realize that he's not someone that you're just gonna just get out of there straight away with one punch. You got to set him up a bit. He looked in very good condition. That's one thing I will give him. And the fact that he was trading probably should have said, all right, use your boxing to start with, and then start to throw the spiteful stuff afterwards, which is what he kind of started to do from about round 5, 6. And I think that's the reason how we managed to maintain the victory. Because if you look at the scorecards, obviously it was 77-75. That's literally like a round's difference. So definitely was a very lackluster performance. There's talk of the big layoff and everything, but even with the layoff, not having to drain yourself down to 160, having an extra 6 pounds to play with in the ring, I would have expected better, and I especially would have expected his gas tank to have not blown up after the second round, because for the next sort of 2.5 rounds, he was literally just trying to recuperate. So that's something he's definitely going to have to work on if he wants to survive the Ammo Williams fight. Because even though Ammo isn't the most technical, he definitely hits a lot harder than Neves does, and he will be able to find shots a lot easier than Neves will. So with that being said, yeah, I've pretty much got nothing else to say on that one. It was a very, like I said, it was lackluster. Yes, he got the victory, but hopefully we can, we can see improvements moving forward.
Cool.
Right. So, now we will move on to the co-main of that event, which was the Blonde Bomber Ebony Bridges versus Shotgun Shannon O'Connell. I'll take the lead on this one. So now there was quite a bit of a backstory with regards to these two, which took place over the last year and a half. Basically, Shannon O'Connell very much feels the same as Shannon Courtney did. Ebony's not necessarily great for the sport. She's sort of getting marketed or based on the wrong thing. She's marketing herself based on the wrong things and not to do with, actually being being a pugilist. However, as Ebony has shown, regardless of whatever she does outside the ring, whether you like it or not, is irrelevant, because what she does in the ring is she gets results and she brings eyes to the events that she's in. Now, this fight, the way it basically played out, it started off in the first round with Ebony sort of trying to maintain and gauge distance while trying to come in behind the probing jab, which was forcing her. She was actually getting caught and countered based off of that, because Shannon O'Connell was actually sticking a bit upright and was waiting for Ebony to fall in and was countering her with some flurries. That being said, I remember she got backed up onto the ropes by Ebony using her size and her strength, and then when Ebony fell in to try and catch her, Shannon O'Connell literally bounced off of the ropes and caught her with a sweeping right hook, which almost took her legs away, but inexplicably didn't then pounce on her. I think she must have thought, maybe I've got more time to sort of get together than what she did. But Ebony has very good powers of recovery. And then from sort of rounds 2, rounds 3, obviously where she got the knockdown, she just started going to work. She started staying busy. She was pushing Shannon O'Connell back. You can tell that even at the sort of the size that both of them are campaigning at, Ebony is just clearly like sort of that bigger, stockier type person. Using her old bodybuilding background, you can tell that she's got size and strength and she knows how to use it. She also knows how to put a forearm in someone's face, underneath the chin, push them back, like get them tired and keep them tired. And even though I think there was something wrong with Shannon O'Connell anyway, because I've never seen her gas out that quickly in any fight before, Ebony definitely didn't let her off the hook and made her have to work tired constantly. And as we then saw, that's basically what led to the end of the fight. With regards to the end, I personally still feel like it could have carried on, not because Shannon, Shannon, obviously there was always a chance because she caught Ebony a couple times and Ebony felt a couple of those shots. She was tired, she was hurt, but she was still throwing back on the ropes. She did take some clean shots, but she was still exchanging. So at that point, I feel like the only time you stop that is if her arms drop to her side and she continuously is just maybe taking 2, 3, 4 unanswered shots, or she drops to the floor, and then you decide to wave it off, saying there's no way to come back. But that's my sort of opinion on it. Tony, I'm gonna let you go with how you saw the fight and what you felt.
Okay, so I actually picked up this fight quite late, so I didn't see the first parts of the fight. I saw the last few rounds. But what is unique about this fight is a stoppage. It's very unusual to see stoppages in female boxing. And all credit goes to Ebony Bridges for getting that stoppage. I take your word for what Shannon O'Connor was able to do early rounds. But once I saw Bridges, from sort of mid rounds onwards, she seemed to have the number on O'Connell in terms of work rate, and she showed a killer finishing technique in being she kind of throws her punches with her head buried like down, because she's looking down and she's coming in. She kind of feels her way into where she wants to be, but then she doesn't have her head up. And look, today we're going to be talking about and viewing masterclasses. So from that perspective, if I'm her trainer, I'm saying you need to see where your punches are going. But give credit where credit is due. She works hard. She throws punches with bad intentions. You can see that's pretty much bag work. That's what when you get on the heavy bag and you're like, go on now, 10 seconds. Yeah, and she done it. Punching in bunches. Again, something that a lot of people don't get enough credit for, where they're able to show that I can throw a 6-punch combination, which we will see later with the masterclasses. Ebony was able to deliver in that respect, coming in saying, right, okay, I'm taking it to you. Let me see if you got the minerals to withstand this. And O'Connor was found short. So well done, Ebony Bridges. In terms of bringing eyes to the sport, what it is. I am slowly getting round to this bringing eyes to the sport thing. I mean, I'm still not on board with the Misfits. But obviously there are some significant players who are bringing eyes to the sport. Look, if she does well with her OnlyFans, I don't know any. I've never been on an OnlyFans account. I just know it to be a little bit frisky of a site, but I understand now that it's being used for more than that. So good luck to her. She's got great assets, and so good luck to her.
Right, to answer Robert Brony's question, nerves might have gassed her out. Has she ever been on a show this big? She's been on big shows in Australia. She has been on very big shows in Australia. Whether they have the same atmosphere or the same feel, not sure. It's not the first time that she's boxed outside of Australia, but it is the first time that she's boxed on this time zone. So yeah, all of that could have played a factor. She did. I mean, she looked very sort of calm, confident, and menacing throughout the entire week. And then it was only sort of some of the things that I saw in some of the behind the scenes footage from like the public workout and then like the weigh-in up till there, almost like maybe there was something that happened where we didn't see. For instance, in the behind the scenes, there was that part where Ebony said, "Oh, nice black eye," like, so maybe you got hit a bit too hard in sparring, maybe like wasn't totally right because of that. All these kind of things could happen. And it's weird because if anyone's got more ties to the UK out of the two of them, it's actually Shannon O'Connell, because her mum is from England. is it a mum or a dad? One, I think it's the mum, that's from England. Whereas Ebony obviously has no ties to the UK outside of now living here. So it's just weird how if it couldn't be the environment, because you should kind of be used to this or used to, you know, the culture or whatever. But yeah, I just seen what HGM wrote. Anyway, we're gonna bypass that. We got a few others to go through, and we're trying to keep on schedule this week. All right. So, any more you want to say on that one?
Nope.
All right. Let me just.
I think I just wanted to double back real quickly to a couple of shouts from Ronin7. Despite what we've seen of Felix Cash, I still favour him over Ammo. But Ammo can punch. Cash is big at the weight. He's been inactive and has been squeezing down to 160 far too long. James Burrell said Felix is a good fighter. Just try too hard. Just don't see more experienced fighters make that mistake. I think it was a good learning experience. And A-Ob said, after Ammo smokes Cash, I need Denzel to get his rematch, just like you said. So, moving on. Oh, hang on, what's this here saying? I guess this is talking about which fight do you think this is applicable to?
Do you guys find the refs in England are a bit too hands-on? I don't like the way refs can push fighters back when break. Okay, so yeah, he's referring to the Bridges fight. So there were several times in the fight where Bridges is either leaning on O'Connell or they're in sort of like a clinch by the ropes, and Howard Foster was getting in between, but he was literally like pushing himself in, and he was separating them, but then he would be pushing Ebony. He was like walking her away, and there was a couple times she looked at him like, "What are you doing?" Almost like there's parts where she's like, "Okay, I want to get back to work," but there's other times she's like, "Why are you still touching me? Like we're separated," kind of thing. So I do kind of see what he's referring to. I feel like he was being a bit too heavy-handed, to be honest. He didn't need to be in the middle as much as he was. But we all know about Howard Foster anyway, so that's not really something to really dwell on. It didn't look great, but hopefully it was a one-off. In terms of what I was going to say, Jam down earlier, I'll have no one talk negatively about Ebbs from henceforth. She put some changes in my back. Oh, she put some change in my back pocket this weekend. Okay, so you went for the KO. All right. Or did you just go for the win in general? Because that was the safe option either way, to be fair. And then A-Obs has just responded to Robert. I've seen refs in America pull fighters' hands off when they clinching. It's not a UK thing. It depends on the ref. Yeah, A-Obs, I think he's talking about not just pulling hands off. He's talking about literally like pushing people back for like getting too involved. Like sometimes you feel to yourself because you're a referee, oh, you've got the power. Like, oh, like this guy can't literally like turn your lights out with one check hook. So mind how you're dealing with them. I think that's more the way Robert is coming at that statement. But anyway, moving on, we're gonna go to the main event of that card. Tony, since you didn't see all of the last fight, I know you saw all of this one, so you're gonna have to take amends and speak on the magnanimous headbutt superstar Josh Warrington and Luis Alberto Lopez. Take it away.
Okay, all right. So I've taken the liberty to highlight the head power of Monsieur Josh Warrington, not of France, but of the United Kingdom, Leeds, Sheffield, Yorkshire, I should say. But yeah, I mean, it's just awful. You know, this guy is a seasoned professional. He's a multiple time world champion. Yet his boxing technique leaves a lot to be desired. You just can't help. I mean, it's coming up now. You're just going to see. It's just awful how he leads so often with his head. You know, literally, you can see him positioning himself and thinking, here it comes. Because he puts his hands up and it's like, I lean forward and no matter what I throw, my head's going to come with it. So, you know, from a analyzing boxing technique perspective, yeah, which is what it says in the titles there, the technical stuff. This guy's a disaster to watch because you know what? There's so much to hate about the way he fights and the destructive nature of his head to his opponent. Having said that, he put up a spirited display towards the end of the fight. Last 3 rounds, I think he was very, very aggressive. I think he kind of knew by then that he could have been down on points and needed to win the last 3 rounds in order to win the fight. But by which time, you know, when I look at a guy whose boxing technique includes all of that bad technique, I might have said this last week in relation to Dillian White, or was it Derek Chisora? You know, you look at a fighter and you go, I don't like what I'm seeing. And that makes you biased to who's winning. Because to me, Lopez is easily throwing much sharper punches. He's got a more languid style. You know, you look at the way he's opened up himself, yeah, and he's just launching punches from a distance. So he's a kind of fighter that doesn't stand in front of his opponent and just give you a solid target. He's moving around using good footwork, and he launches punches from a distance. So he jumps into his punches and he launches wide hooks, long jabs, long rights, long uppercuts even, and he's catching Josh Warrington, to me, with cleaner shots, harder punches, and definitely more accurate. So he does that for pretty much most of the fight. By the time we get to round 9, I'm like, this guy's winning. And this is going to be difficult for Josh to get back. The only way I could see him winning is he's got to drop his opponent. Because I'm absolutely, at this point, thinking to myself, I can't stand watching this guy box. But as I said, spirited last 3 rounds. He did clean it up and managed to cause problems for Lopez. But as I said, by that time, Lopez to me has already done the damage and deservedly wins. Split decision, right?
No, majority.
Was it majority? Sir,
yeah,
majority. So, yeah, well done to Monsieur Lopez or Senor Lopez. And Josh Warrington, what can I say? You know, it's like, can you teach an old dog new tricks? At his long-teethed age, I don't believe he's got much hope of improving. And quite frankly, now the competition around him is just too good for him to be competing at this level. Certainly he can compete domestically, probably European-wide, Commonwealth levels. But to me, they're probably going to try and get him in again with Lara. They're going to probably try and get a rematch. I don't want to see this guy fighting in those competitions because I want to see the fresh guys coming up and getting fights with other good fighters as opposed to somebody who's going to maul you with their head.
Okay, so leading on from what you said, yeah, it's definitely become a trend after the first Lara fight, because prior to that, there wasn't much talk of him, catching people with the head. It happened once or twice in maybe like 28 fights. Whereas now, literally, you've had 3 fights on the bounce and the head comes into play on each and every one of them. You can tell that his favorite character on Street Fighter is Balrog. Like, that's because every time I see his head grow, he literally looks just like Balrog in the game, leaping off the floor to do it as well. As you see right here, leap, like with the gazelle legs, literally it's crazy. That being said, if we talk about the technique of the fight, one thing I will give Josh, even though I actually had Lopez winning 7 rounds to 5, but I did think that the first 5 rounds, even though he was more active and he was throwing the much harder shots, Warrington was actually doing a much better job of like blocking those shots than a lot of people realize. Like there wasn't that many that were getting through. There was a lot that he was catching on the gloves, or that he was, maybe catching on the forearms, and he was actually able to evade a few. But I guess he felt them and realized, I can't exchange with this guy. I can't try and punch with him. I've got to wait for him to finish, because ultimately, if I go in between this, there's definitely enough here to hurt, and he was definitely hurt a couple times in that first salvo. By the sixth round, that's when the body work started to come into play as well, and even he went back to his corner telling his dad, yeah, he's caught me to the body there. That one hurt. So, but Josh, credit to him in terms of his actual gas tank and work rate. He does have a very good chin. I know obviously he did get KO'd by Lara, but I mean Lara basically had him hurt from the fourth round, concussed, and it still took him another 5 rounds before he finished him. So Warrington's got a good chin, he's got a good engine, and at one point he just started outworking Lopez, making it really dirty, making it really uncomfortable, getting the benefit of the rub of the green, hometown guy, plus the ref weren't really going to do too much in his own city. He was getting away with quite a bit, whether it was the head, whether it was forearms, whether it was punching low, punching on the hip, even inexplicably like punching the guy in his batty. I mean, I don't really know what that move happens at, but I mean, he was having success, I suppose. So long may it continue. But yeah, he picked up, for me, he swept the last 4 rounds, and I only gave him the fifth round as well. So yeah, that's how I had it. But yeah, he definitely started to pick it up when Lopez started to fade, but Lopez did enough so that he wasn't able to basically nick it on those cards, as according to me. But yeah, that's pretty much what I saw of it and how I felt it went. So let's just take a quick look at what the chat is saying. All right, Ronan7 says, I thought some dirty fighting was okay and can show a fighter his experience, but Warrington does it a little too much. Totally agree. Jam Down 187 says, I don't know if anyone is paying attention, but Warrington doesn't appear to be on good terms with Eddie and the Zone. There was zero communication between fighter and promoter pre or post fight. It's interesting. Well, actually, I know that there's yeah, I heard something about that from before. He's not happy with the Zone because of the commentary that they were putting out in the last Lara fight. So there is some background stuff there. I don't know if it's to do with Eddie, but I definitely know he's not happy with the Zone at the moment. And then Skyline punching man in the batty. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy out here. But these streets ain't safe. Gotta be careful. All right. So with that being said, let's move on to the next one. You're on mute.
Just before we move on, let me just pull up these latest ring rankings which just came up in the last hour, which basically show us the top 10 of the featherweight division. And obviously, you can see that Luis Alberto Lopez has now entered in at the 5th position. I question Warrington beating 8, 9, and 10, in all honesty. I definitely don't think he beats 8 and 10.
Well, he already beat 8.
Not again.
You don't think Warrington will beat Martinez again?
I think they fight again.
He'll beat Kiko again. He's beat him twice already. How can he not beat him the third time? That's not a trilogy we need to see.
Okay. 10 definitely beats him though.
Maybe. There's only one way to find out. They got to fight.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Right. So, are we going Top Rank or are we going BLK?
Let's do Top Rank because I want to save BLK for the big finale.
Okay, right. So, we will start with good man Tiger Johnson. I'm gonna let you get on this one because you was happy enough to get the footage for us. So take it away.
Cool. Well, Junior welterweight, Tiger Johnson. As you can see, it's been working out with some good people. And Jerron Boots Ennis comes into this fight and he's got a pretty impressive resume. Former Olympian, shows good technique, good use of jab, good distance control, and effectively overruns his opponent with ease. Shows good power, good patience, and finishes with a blitzkrieg of punches, which we see now. So once again, in that prospect list that we are building, each week we come to you, we try and give you something new, some new names to start looking at. There's another name for you to add to your list of fighters. As I said, he is a former Olympian. He has got great amateur pedigree. And therefore, fundamentals are very good and looked very impressive on Saturday night.
Okay, I've got nothing more to add to that. I was greatly impressed from what I saw. Not a name that I know. I know quite a few of those amateurs and the young prospects over there at top rank, but he was one that slipped under my radar. But I will be keeping an eye on him. I like the style, I like the movement, I like the punch selection, and I like the spitefulness. So yeah, let's see how he progresses. Moving on to the next one, we're going to look at a little bit of the very, very good performance by Keyshawn Davis. I'll let you go again on this one. I'll take the next. Okay, so looks as if that one has sound on it from somewhere, and so we can't talk over it. Right, so save your take. We'll watch it and then we'll come back.
I can reload it without the sound.
Nice, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Just we'll watch it and then you talk, I'll talk. Right.
Okay.
All right, and we'll leave it there. I'm sure you guys kind of get the picture. Go for it, Tony.
Cool. So yeah, Keyshawn Davis, a name that people who are regulars of the show will recognize. Each time Keyshawn has performed, we've been right there, front and center, to analyze his performances. A boxer that we followed from his amateur days. Obviously, he was a unique fighter in that he was a professional who competed in the Olympics, despite being a professional. It's interesting that this weekend's fight drew attention from none other than his conqueror in the Olympic final, Andy Cruz from Cuba, who is now a professional himself. Saying that my Padawan or my younger is doing good things and making a name for himself. So let's see what happens when he comes back in and sees me, the guy who's had his number every time in the amateurs. But talking about his display, I think you could see with the antics This was very much, I'm going out there to enjoy myself. He is an entertainer. He talks the talk. He walks the walk. He's flamboyant. He's very braggadocious. But you know what? I can't knock him because I see his training footage and he's working out with some real good guys. Most notably, he's in the camp with Bud Crawford. So, you know, iron sharpens iron. And he can, you know, it can hardly go wrong by being a regular sparring partner for Bud. He does everything he needs to do. But right now, you kind of go, okay, if you're doing that with these caliber of opponents, maybe it's time for a step up. And so having seen him do what he has done for, you know, a few fights in a row, I kind of feel like now is the time, just like Jared Anderson, who we'll be talking about soon, for us to go, okay, let's step you up into, you know, top 20, maybe even, you know, lower top 10 guys and see what you can do against that type of opposition. Would be very interesting if Andy Cruz would get a match, because we've seen those type matches happen. Obviously, we saw Amir Khan fighting his conqueror on his first pro fight. So it would be an interesting matchup to see how they would get on against one another in the professional code. But yeah, well done, Keyshawn Davis. Very entertaining. There was something on his shorts about he had some numbers on his shorts which were a tribute to some kids in his local area who were killed. So I also have to give maximum respect for that tribute, because when I heard the backstory of it, it was like, yeah, I like that when boxers have got social consciousness in their heads to be able to say, you know what, I'm doing this for somebody in my local area who's deprived or has issues. And obviously, you know, he was raising awareness to the fact that, you know, he wanted to use his platform to give tribute to those guys that had passed in his area.
Yeah, they were uni students that got killed. I think it was a drive-by shooting or something like that. I can't remember the full story, but yeah, same as you. Obviously, big respect for that. In terms of the actual action, I mean, he was very controlled and very patient in that fight. He had very good punch variety. He was able to sort of set things up behind the jab. He's definitely mastered that stab to the body, almost that hold the person's hands up, hold their hands there, stab downstairs, that both Terence Crawford does and Shakur Stevenson seem to start to do as well. And yeah, he was good at walking his guy down. He's pretty good he doesn't follow people around. He definitely knows how to cut the ring with his movement. Everything just at the moment is textbook. Just if he starts properly sitting down on some of his shots, especially when it's in the combination, if he can start sitting down on maybe the second or the third, or like, you know, going soft on the first, hard on the second, soft third, fourth, hard on the fifth, he'll definitely have a lot more success. I mean, he's taken out most people anyway, but when you get those trickier guys, you just got to vary the rhythm to hit them with stuff that they're now not expecting and not bracing for. So yeah, overall, very good performance. I was impressed. I didn't think he was going to get the knockout just because the guy's never been knocked out and he's obviously not at that level just yet. But he came close on one or two occasions whereby it could have happened. So he's definitely, like I said, he's got a bright future. I think he'd definitely be a world champion moving forward.
Cool. So I've got some comments in the chat. Ronin 7 says Keyshawn almost seems to be turning into an orthodox Crawford. Now, that's a very bold statement, my friend. That's a very bold statement. And bearing in mind, we're about to break down the technical abilities of said man, Mr. Terence Bud Crawford. I think you'll see there's a marked difference. Keyshawn is ready for anyone now. They need to put him in with the world level guys. Obbs has said pretty much agreeing with me. I think, yeah, we now need to see him tested with some of the guys. You don't agree?
He's only had 7 fights. Like he's still on 8 rounders. You can put him in someone like top 30. Top 30 is fine.
Mm-hmm.
He needs at least another 2 or 3 more, especially if he's active. Because if he's active and you get him 2 or 3 fights between now and August, 8 to 10 rounders, and if he gets through them and like clears them out quickly, then cool, you step him up to the challenger status. But right now he's only been a pro a year and a half. I don't think there's any rush, quite frankly.
Okay. I mean, we can beg to differ. I personally think the amateur record has to be taken into consideration. We've seen amateur fighters who have excelled in the amateur ranks come out and do really good stuff in very quick time. Shakur Stevenson, etc. So for me, Keyshawn, with his amateur background, and as I mentioned, fundamentals, he's got them. He's got them all day. And I didn't say, upper level top 10. I said, 10 to 20. So I know you're saying like maybe 20 to 30, but I certainly think, you could pick a guy from 10 to 20, maybe 15 to 25. A sweet mix of yours and mine. But I certainly think a step up in quality can be achieved at this stage in his career. So we'll move on. Keyshawn is made for TV, says Skyliner, the editor. A real action man. KRL-B. That's a new name. I've not seen that one before. Welcome to the chat. For some reason, I thought Keyshawn was a lefty. Kalawastu, another new name. Welcome. Keyshawn is not ready for world level. I am sorry. It's easy to do this against the little Hispanic man from down the road, but the mentality got to change as you go up in gears. And that's what I'm saying. I think he does have the capability to up his game. The fact that he is sparring with probably the world's best boxer, I kind of feel like, look, he needs to be moved into that top 20 range of fighters. At least let's see a legitimate test anyway.
Okay, Tony, forget the comments for a moment. We've got to move on. We'll come back to some of them in a bit. Moving on to Xander Zayas. Do you know, is there any sound in this one?
I hope not.
Okay, doesn't look like it. Cool. Right, so Zayas versus Salazar. Now, this was actually a very fun fight to watch, and it showed Zayas is working his way through the levels. In the very first round, he started using his combinations to get into range, which is something that you don't normally see too often. Whereby he was using the jab, then he was using the sort of the hook to then be able to get himself on the inside of his opponent, like you can kind of see there. But this was a little further back, a little later on in the fight. He was basically, both him and Salazar were punching with each other, but more times than not, Xander Zayas was actually getting the better of the exchanges. But he also had to weather a couple of big shots himself. His catch and shoots, as you can see there, was also deceptively good. But there was obviously a couple times he did have to eat those shots, and in those occasions, in those occasions when he did eat those shots, he took them very well and ended up, going through the motions, going through the gears. There was a couple of times it looked like he could have got Salazar out of there, but ultimately there was a good, tough, durable, strong opponent. It was a good step-up test for him. Now at 40, that made him 15-0 with 10 KOs. He's looking to step up into the next level, and I feel the same thing you was saying about Keyshawn is what will now happen with him now that he's gone through the necessary proper building blocks, and still only being 20 years of age. From starting at the age of 17. So he's got a very, very bright future.
Cool. There's not really much for me to add to that because, I kind of echo the points you've made. The point about being, needing to step up. In terms of the technical breakdown of his game, you are on point in terms of, very good fundamentals. If you looked at the footage slowed down, you see his head movement is exemplary. He has a very good method of catching and countering, as you said, the catch counter, and then occasionally just slipping the punch and coming back in with the backhand. So very good fundamentals, very entertaining fight, good test, and we look forward to seeing Xander in the future in more of those testing fights.
Okay, right. So moving swiftly on, we're trying to keep this one nice and compact for everyone today. Right, where is my footage of... Okay, for some reason I can't seem to see my footage of Jared Anderson, which I uploaded earlier. You didn't take it out, did you?
No.
Oh, okay, guys. Well, it looks like we're not going to have that footage there. I'll tell you what. Let's go to Lopez Martin, and then afterwards, what we'll do is we will come back just to give some appreciation to that moving forward. So while I go grab my phone, speak about this one for a bit, seeing that this is your guy.
Cool. So as Basis said, Teofimo Lopez is my guy, my much hyped guy who was the takeover. Having now moved up a weight, I was expecting the takeover 2.0, but on this display, I think it's going to be very difficult for us to experience the takeover 2.0 because Sandor Martin showed deficiencies in the game of Teofimo Lopez. He certainly seemed to get into the head of Teofimo Lopez, and it seems like there is an issue mentally with the kid because some of the gibberish that he was saying after the fight kind of makes me think, is he really right in the head? Let me break down the fight itself. Sandor Martin was an elusive opponent. He used the ring very well. I believe Bob Arum and the Lopez camp were complaining that he was on the run, but I don't see that as running, as opposed to seeing it as somebody who knows how to use their feet in the right way and to essentially catch and count or counter their opponent, because that's what Sandor Martin was able to do very effectively against Teofimo Lopez. Lopez, because he wasn't able to catch up with Sandor Martin with his footwork and that movement, was throwing a lot of his punches from distance and falling short badly. And Sandor Martin seemed to have his number perfectly for catching him when he comes in. So Lopez is chasing, and Sandor Martin, although he's boxing on the back foot, he's catching Teofimo Lopez with great shots as he's coming in. So he's doubling on his power because he's catching the guy coming in and throwing his punches from the backhand with great consistency. So Teofimo Lopez didn't seem to be able to get around Martin's technique. And so for several rounds on the trot, through the early rounds, mid rounds, it just appeared like, look, this guy's got your number. Obviously, there was the knockdown in round one. There was a slip in round two. It just looked a bad fight for Teofimo Lopez. So I'm gonna have to eat humble pie, as I did yesterday on Monday Night Smoke, and say, look, I'm not quite so sure about this kid. I do like Teofimo Lopez. I think physically he's a phenom. I watch a lot of him. I've met him personally. He trains real hard. He's obviously had a good upbringing in the amateurs. He trained at the Mayweather camp with some real killers over there. But I'm just a little bit worried now. Obviously, the loss to Kambosos highlighted a problem. I know there were potential issues there in that particular fight. But now looking at this fight against Sandor Martin, it certainly rings bells and red flags start to come out about, his competency at the very elite level. So that's really my breakdown. Not the greatest of fight. In terms of scoring of this fight, obviously, this was a very contentious fight for the fact that a lot of people in the boxing world thought Sandor Martin won the fight. My initial thoughts on watching this live was, I think Teo's just done enough. But I have to say, the reason I think that is because I'm using blinkers and I'm thinking to myself, he's going to get the decision. I think, Base, you might have alluded to this previously from your last week's prediction that you thought Sandor Martin would win the fight, but he wouldn't win the fight. And I think that's really what's happened. Is I thought at the time he's going to get this because I think he just done enough. But on reflection, I think Sandor Martin probably was the better fighter. He was definitely getting the cleaner shots off. But Teofimo kept himself, active. Obviously, a lot of the emphasis on his winning technique was the fact that he was on the front foot throughout the entire fight. And I think that's probably what swayed it for him, for those judges that like that type of that fighter.
Okay, so right, what I will say, I will keep it sort of short and brief on this one. I had it 5 rounds to 5 with 1 point off for the knockdown that was scored. Obviously, there was a second one which should have been scored but wasn't. But yeah, with regards to that, so I had Sandor winning basically just based off of that 1 point deduction. However, the way I saw this fight, it was either 94-95 Sandor Martin, or it was 95-94 to Lopez, because there were 6 rounds you could have gave to Teo based on the fight. But having said that, there was 4 rounds that were clear Sandor Martin rounds, which means you can't not give him any less than 4 rounds in the fight. So I don't think it was a robbery, but I do think the scorecards were. I think the scorecards are what made the fight turn into a robbery. The 97-92 scorecard was atrocious. Basically giving Teo 8 rounds and Sandor 2. And the 96-93 scorecard was also virtually just as bad. As I said, there was 4 rounds that Martin won clearly. So to not give him those 4 rounds as an absolute minimum is a bit of a bad take. Now, if we just go in terms of the actual action of the fight, yeah, Teofimo, very athletic, as you said. But for as much as he claims to like to fight southpaws, he clearly doesn't know how to exit the pocket of a southpaw, or to exit the sort of what they would call the kill zone or the kill box in a safe manner. The fact that he's literally lunging forward over his lead foot, throwing himself off balance to try and catch Sandor with jabs, not even the backhand, but to catch him with jabs is very sort of telling that something isn't being worked on within the camp and in the corner. And to be caught twice with the same check right hook to knock you down twice, whether both of them were counted or not, like, I still feel all of that tells you that there's a lot of work to do. Now, the issue with Teo is that he looked massive for 135 just because he's got sort of a bit of a muscularish type frame, but he doesn't have a long, lean enough frame to carry excess size to going up the weights. So at 140, he looks a lot more human because he doesn't have the natural size of the rest of the 140 guys. He's nowhere near as tall as Ryan Garcia or like Devin Haney. He's just sort of a bit wide but his frame's just not suited for it. So he's gonna have issues at 140. And if he thinks of going past 140 to 147, he's really gonna have issues. So for him, he needs to work on his actual boxing fundamentals now. and forget about, oh, I can take people out with power, because your power isn't translating up to 140 as much as you hoped it would, or as much as you thought it would. So yeah, he's gonna have to get someone back in the corner that can establish and work, sort of work out game plans, and actually so that he can stick to them, rather than trying to rely on just his basic athleticism. um Outside of that, let's give some praise to Sandor Martin, because he did exactly what he told us he was going to do. He took away everything that Lopez does good, and he also highlighted everything that he does bad. Lopez's natural style is a counterpuncher. That's what he like. He prefers people to come onto his shots, come into his range, fire at him so that he can slip the counters. He's not good at actually going after people unless he's actually got them hurt. Now, when you face a pure boxer, someone who's not gonna give you very many opportunities to strike or to catch them unawares, you've then got to adjust your style to be able to make them uncomfortable and throw when they don't want you to throw. But Teo just doesn't have that mindset, and he's not being coached correctly to be able to make those adjustments, which is why Sandor had so much success throughout the fight, even fighting with the broken nose that obviously happened with the head clash in the first round, which was accidental. Like we won't have to debate that one. But yeah, like overall, it was a good performance from Sandor. It was a very lackluster and almost a run out of ideas performance for Teo. But we'll see what he does left. We're not totally throwing him in the garbage, but he's not. I feel like the hype that maybe a lot of people gave to him, myself included, I probably did as well, at a certain point in his career, probably was a bit over. It was a bit too soon, and it was a bit overstated. But yeah, let's go to some of the comments, see what some of the people are saying about that, and then we've got the Anderson footage for the real knowledge, who appears to be in the building. You're on mute, Tony.
Sorry about that. So just before we go to the further comments, there's the brand new, literally within the last hour, ring ratings for super lightweight. As you can see, new entry at number 10, Monsieur Teofimo Lopez, followed by Alberto Puello, Ergashev, Gary Antoine Russell, Barboza, Zepeda, Matias Cattrall, Ramirez, Prograis, and Taylor. So, he's got a formidable list of guys ahead of him. The question that I'm sure the real knowledge would like to know is, do I see Teofimo taking over, or is it the fake over, as he likes to put it? I question it now. I question my statement from earlier in the year and last year, because I obviously would question whether he can perform against certainly the top four, top five. Yeah, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, I personally think Teofimo on his day could beat those guys. But top five, it would be a big question. And obviously, I think anyone who knows enough about Devin Haney, I think he's going to probably join that party as well at some point very, very soon, which would also be somebody else I don't think he beats currently.
All right, let's sort of keep it going. I just wanted to bring up this nice little take from the real knowledge. He says, hot take, but I like the breakdown at least as much as Monday Night Smoke. Better boxing talk, but less smoke. That's what we do. We try and keep the emotion out of it, and we stick with the facts as best as we can. So I appreciate that one.
Technical stuff,
as he says. Right, so because we didn't get to go through it the first time, we're just gonna run through quickly some of the footage of Anderson and Forrest. You can go ahead and start with this one.
Okay, Jared Big Baby Anderson. Um, I mean, what can I say? You know, there was a lot of commentary yesterday about this performance against the very competent Gery Forrest. You know, I honestly can say that anyone who thinks that Jared Anderson isn't the real deal certainly needs to look at the record of Gery Forrest, because nobody has done this to Gery Forrest. You know, I had a conversation with Maestro yesterday after Monday Night Smoke, and there's no doubt, you know, we both praised him and we both feel that, you know, look, he's right up there now in terms of being in a position to challenge for the very top honors. And also, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Maestro, who I believe has provided us with this footage, who was there on the night. Listen, 2-round job, but most importantly, you can see how many punches Jared Anderson is throwing. 115 punches as a heavyweight in 1 round, of which 54 landed. And you know he's not throwing soft punches. You know, they're all punches with bad intentions, with a great finish in round 2. I cannot be helped but say I'm super impressed. Now, yes, of course, you're fighting a tough fighter and he's able to get his punches off. But to have that super confidence to say, you know what, I'm taking this guy out. Because what you're doing by coming out and throwing that volume of punches in round 1 is saying, I believe I'm going to take this guy out. Because my question is, if you don't take him out in the first 3 rounds, what's your punch output going to be right in round 6 and 7? So, well done to Jared Anderson. Very, very impressed by the way in which you threw your punches. They were all very, very well constructed combinations. You know, he threw the uppercuts at the right time. He threw body shots at the right time. You know, he was able to find both body and head. That was one thing I really appreciated. You know, look, we're here about the technical stuff. Yeah. We talked about this earlier. You know, we are going to be going through masterclasses or performances. Now, this here, this goes down as a very impressive performance, because technically, if you're going to blast out a guy, that's what you want to do. You want to give him angles. You want to keep him on his back foot. You want to back him into the ropes. And when you see the opportunity, tee off in the areas that punches are available. Sometimes fighters become too head focused and throw all their efforts at the head and totally negate the body. Whereas what we saw with Jared Anderson was a good, you know, rounded assault on both head and body, which allowed Gery Forrest to bring his hands down to protect himself at the body, and in that instance, leave his head exposed.
No, I mean, look, you pretty much summed it. I just want to address this comment from the Real Knowledge, and I quite agree with it to a degree. People can't have it both ways. Lorena got criticized for not going all guns blazing for the KO against Dubois. Jared Anderson did exactly that against Forrest, and people are criticizing him. Now, I agree with you to a degree about the Lorena part. What I'll disagree with when it comes to Anderson is just that when you're still leveling your attacks, you've still got to stay defensively responsible as well. Like at the end of the day, you can't get caught with those mad looping. Like for instance, that same salvo that he had, if he got caught with a Dillian White left hook in the middle of that, the same way he got caught with the Forrest one, that's a whole different story right there. So even though Forrest he's a very good operator, I don't think he's got Dillian level power, AJ level power, you know, and sort of the upper level guys. So all I would say is when you're in that salvo, you still got to make sure that when you're swinging, you still bring one of the other hands back to your head when when the other punch is coming out. You can't have both of your hands down swinging, just expecting to keep the guy off center, because as we saw, you can still ship punches that way. But in terms of like the start of the fight was him coming out southpaw to me didn't really work, because southpaw versus southpaw, if unless you're a natural southpaw, switch it into southpaw stance against a southpaw just opened you up to getting tagged, which is basically what happened for the first sort of 20-30 seconds of the fight, until he's managed to switch himself back to orthodox, because he was actually getting out jabbed from the southpaw stance, and Jerry Forrest was coming over the top of his arm consistently. When he moved back to orthodox is when he started obviously teeing off and having success. But the punch output is, is a great testament, and the fact that he's young means that you've got that natural energy. When you're younger, he probably wouldn't be able to throw 115 punches around, sort of starting going up the gears and when you go up the levels, just because at that size you're going to be made to miss a lot more. So when you're missing, you're going to expend a lot more energy. So there's still there's a lot of work still there to be done, but he's a young guy. Like, no one's expecting the finished article yet, but all the raw materials are there for him to be like the future of the heavyweight division. And I have no doubt that he will reach there, because he seems, more than a lot of other people, he actually does seem truly dedicated to the craft and not just the attention it gives him.
Excellent. So I've been strolling through some of the comments. I think I've got most of them on this fight. So we can move on. I don't think there are any questions which question anything that we've said. We need to prompt the brakes on Jared. He needs an acid test. And to me, Jerry Forrest represents an acid test, because, as I said, look at who Jerry Forrest has been up in with. If you don't think Jerry Forrest is an acid test, look at his record.
I agree with that. All right, so now, because I'm conscious of the time, it's actually a little longer than we want it to be. Wait, hold on, what have I done there? Is that me? Oh no, that's fine. Okay, so there's a few things you put in there which I'm gonna have to skip over. Let's go straight to the first masterclass, which is Bud Crawford versus David Avanesian. And since you've been waxing lyrical, I'll let you go on this one, and then I'll talk about Inoue.
So let's get straight into it, because this, for me, was a beautiful example of the sweet science. Look, you're going to see images of great hand placement. Yeah. You're going to see footwork, distance control. Look at the jab. Look at where it's positioned in his fight. Look at where he is in the ring. The guy is using a combination of jab to the body, jab to the head, catch counters, slip and move. He's literally just showing you an array of different things in the ring that make you have to say, this is a master at work. Look at that touch control, waits for my man to make a move, and then boom, there's a lot of times when he used that, and there you go, bang, look at that beautiful left hook. It's just a thing of beauty. And then rather than bouncing out of range, he stays there. He knows, I can stay in this distance and wait for my opponent to come straight back in. Avanesian trying to switch hit. And look at that. He's blocked the shot, and he gets a lovely stab jab straight to the stomach. It's just some of the most beautiful boxing that you're likely to see. Great array of punches, great choice of punches. He barely wastes a punch, barely. And this is against a foe in David Avanesian, who I give maximum props to. I think David is, a hell of a fighter. Obviously trains here in the UK of Russian heritage, but, he's a hell of a fighter. But to get outboxed the way he did by Bud Crawford and taken out, just shows we are watching a master at work. Bud Crawford's control, he's just looking. And obviously we're going to be able to compare this performance with another master at work who fought this morning in Inoue. And you're gonna see similar things. Things like the distance control, and then when he comes on the inside, he knows he can stand there, and he looks at his opponent. Look, I'm looking, I'm feeling for when you move your hand. There, boom, and then I catch you with that right hook. Oh, jeez, it's just a beautiful thing to see. That I can watch you slowly throw your punch, hit, boom, in between the punch. Most times when you throw that right hook, it's coming around the glove. Watch, it's inside the glove. That's timing. And Terence Crawford, to me, in the battle of pound for pound, who is the pound for pound best fighter on the planet? Terence Crawford is that guy, because absence makes the heart grow fonder. And I've missed this guy. I've missed seeing him in action. But to see him come back like this against that opponent, I'm so impressed. I'm super impressed. It's beautiful. It's as a boxing coach, I can say nothing wrong about his performance.
Okay. Nothing to add to that. It was a very good measured performance. It was against an overmatched opponent. But that being said, that's not taken away from Avanesyan. That's just he was an overmatched opponent. Terence is levels above. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the most brutal knockout he's actually ever had, from all the ones that I've remembered seeing. So yeah, let's see what happens in the near future. Now we're gonna kick through this one, and we're gonna go to the fight that happened earlier on today. Now, normally this wouldn't count as to this week, but because it was such a monumental occasion, we decided that it was only right to add it in, and you can even see a little makeshift picture that was added to our graphic. So, here we have Naoya Inoue versus Paul Butler, 23-0 versus 34-2. What I will say about this fight is, Inoue showed great patience in the fight, especially throughout the first, in the middle rounds, when Paul Butler pretty much did nothing but move and tuck up, not engage, not try to win the fight, not show any ambition apart from possibly just to say I went 12 rounds with Inoue. I think that was the game plan, because apart from maybe one or two salvos in the fight, there was very little that was happening, to the point where Inoue basically then started just doing his own thing to keep himself engaged. Hands behind the back like Roy Jones Jr., hands down towards, around his side of his waist. Just literally poking his chin out there, just begging Butler to try and throw a shot just to make it interesting. And then ultimately, as you can see here, the finish in the 11th, it was pretty much all over. Butler could have got up, but you saw him shake his head like, nope, I've had enough. That's more than enough for me. And to be totally honest, I'm almost a bit disappointed in Paul Butler, only for the simple fact of, you've gone that long in the fight, you're still actually able to get up at this point. You might as well, because if you're that close to the finish line, try and limp over it, because that's what you went there to do. You didn't go there to win the fight. You went there to go 12 rounds. So to give up in the 11th, I don't know. To me, it's a little suspect. If you was gonna do that, you might as well have just let him knock you out in the third, and you could have gone home with less damage to your body, to your face. Like, everyone was expecting you to get knocked out early anyway, so you wouldn't have let anybody down, and you would have made your money for less work. It didn't really make much sense, that whole the game plan from Gallagher, his, what he was doing, the fact that, the what's it called, the Japanese fans are very silent and respectful anyway. I'm surprised that they didn't start booing at one point, because my favorite part of it was hearing Tim Bradley say, "I won't be mad if I never see this guy fight again."
It was funny. That was
Tim
funny.
Bradley, that he started putting those verbal paws on him, and I don't blame him because you showed nothing apart from, I think it was the 7th round. You maybe had 2 or 3 salvos in the 7th round. That was
If
it.
you're lucky, yeah. If you're lucky,
Yeah, and that was not the performance that someone as great as Inoue deserves to have for their undisputed fight. For you,
yeah, absolutely.
if it was just a regular unification, you've got 1 belt, he's got 1 belt. That's different. You're fighting for all the marbles. Go out on your shield. Give it a go. And you did nothing. So I can't even give you respect for that. You might as well stayed home and just give it and just meld the belt to him.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, again, keeping it short and sweet. I totally agree with you. This to me was again a beautiful performance. The distance control by Inoue, and it just got to that point where he was playing. He was doing everything that he wanted to in the fight, as you said. The hands behind the back, the posturing, the crouching down into. He was literally just going, okay, whose style can I show you I've got in my bag for this next round? It was fun. Look, his hands down, he's down, crouched. And what I like here is he doesn't take a step back. He's like, okay, I'm just going to stay there. I'm just going to stand in front of you. I don't need to take a step back. A lot of fighters find themselves hitting and stepping back. Inoue hits, yeah, and then he stays there. And that to me is ultimate control. I can control the distance. I know psychologically what I'm going to do, where you're going to go, to the point that I do not never have to take a step back. And the control, the distance control, great use of jab. Sometimes the pouring jab, sometimes a stiff jab, sometimes jabbing to the body. The combination work. That overhand right was a regular. Sometimes he hits it on the glove because he knows, I keep hitting there long enough, he's going to drop that hand. And yeah, what a great finish from the man, the monster. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. So that was the end of the 2 fight masterclasses for this weekend, or this last few days, I should say. If you had to ask me, I don't know if someone asked me who's in my top 5 or top 10, pound for pound, those 2 guys today showed me enough to be able to say those are my top 2 guys.
Your top 2, yeah? Okay.
Pound for pound, top 2.
All right. I mean, I don't agree, but I won't argue with you.
Who you got? Just out of interest, that beats them 2? Pound for pound.
You see, my pound for pound list is slightly different, but my pound for pound is, they're in the top 5 of my pound for pound. It goes Canelo's still number 1, this is based off of achievements.
Yeah.
Alexander Usyk's number 2. Crawford's number 3. Inoue's number 4. And who did I have at number 5? I have to double. I can't remember who I've got at number 5, but those are the top 4 that I have. And Inoue and Crawford could potentially switch.
This is a great question by Robert Brownie. What happens if he goes up and fights Fulton? I mean, what I'd love to see, talking about Fulton, is we need to see that unification between Fulton and Akhmadaliev, that's it. And then let's just see, chips on the table if we can get a matchup.
Because Stephen Fulton's going up to 126 to rematch Daniel Roman.
That's a shame. That's a shame. If he's not willing to stick around at 122 to take on Akhmadaliev, then that's a shame, because when you got 4 belts taken up by 2 fighters, unification should be priority. But yeah, if we know he should go up there, that would be a fight of ages to me. that would be a fight over the ages. Fulton versus Inoue. Of course, that would be fourth weight division, although he missed one out.
It would be his fourth one in terms of fight, in terms of championships. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, great achievements. That's me.
We got a couple of minutes left, so let's answer a couple of these questions. So, Bruce Kai, do we give credit to Butler for last in 11, or did Inoue switch off and go for the kill when he realized it was the penultimate round? No, basically, it was a mixture of Inoue wasn't just going to run after him, and Butler was just he was literally in survival mode. So, as we know, when you see journeyman, when you see certain fighters, their whole point is they tuck up, they go the distance, they don't take any damage, so then they can go and have a fight like 2-3 weeks later, and that's how they make their money. That's pretty much the whole game plan is not to get KO'd for them. He pretty much was employing that exact same that exact same game plan. He had a tight guard from the start to the finish, very rarely moved from it, didn't angle, didn't take any other positions, didn't probe for any shots. He was literally in this guard pretty much the whole time. So at that point, if you're not giving the guy a huge amount to tuck up on, then you're not as in as immediate danger as you might have been previously. The body shots were hurting, I could tell that, but again, as soon as he caught a body shot he didn't like, he just moved. He started to to side hop and jog around the ring and make Inoue follow him. So I don't really blame Inoue. I mean, he probably could have pushed the gas or just like kept him in a corner at one point, but maybe he thought the guy is just too fresh at this point. I don't want to go too reckless in case he catches me with something that he shouldn't have and it makes me look bad. But yeah, after a while, I think he just thought, you know what, I'm going to have to embarrass this guy to get him to exchange and trade with me. And that's when you had the arms behind the back and the alley shuffles and the arms by the side. Come on, hit me. He even went onto the ropes at one point, like, all right, come then, let's do something. Paul Butler was just it was a disgrace in there. I'm sorry, I can't give you any other comment than he was disgraceful. It was really bad. As much as we all know that he was outmatched and outgunned, we know that. That's fine. But like I said, it's undisputed. If you go out on your shield. People probably would have respected him a lot more if he got knocked out in the second round, but he was throwing and that he was trying his hardest, because no one's criticizing what's in there? No one's criticizing. Tony, help me out. My name's escaping me. The last opponent from Inoue.
Donaire.
Yeah, Nonito Donaire. No one's criticizing Donaire for getting starched in, what was it, the second or the third in their rematch. But he was fighting. But yeah, he was fighting. He was going. He was going for the smoke.
Yeah.
So when you go for the smoke, you're gonna get more respect than just running about and just not engaging. So that's my take on it. We've been going, like I said, a bit longer than maybe we wanted to, but we hope that we've engaged everyone in the chat. Have you got anything you want to say with the people before we head out of here?
No, appreciate everybody who's joined us and has kept with us. Obviously, there are going to be some weeks where we have a lot of action to cover. I hope we've allowed you to have commentary on, prospects, contenders, and world champions at all levels. Obviously, we had two, as I said, superlative fights this weekend. If there's some of the action that you might not have seen, hopefully we've given you some food to go away and have a look at some of the fights where you might not have seen them. Thank you everybody for your comments. The interaction has been amazing. The amount of comments that we are getting is phenomenal. Sorry, we just can't read everything out, because if I look down the side of the screen, we have just got an absolute plethora of comments that are coming in, and there are so many that it's almost impossible for us to read everything. But guys, thank you very much. I'm really Thankful for your continued support.
Good stuff. Right, so you can see ticker tape below. My stuff there, BaseDaKID, Hardcore Casual. That's where you'll find me on everything except Instagram, which is just BaseDaKID. Twitter, B_A_S_E. But if you type in BaseDaKID, it comes up anyway. As for Tony, I've just literally done his slight little edit. So it's Pugilistboy at everything except Instagram, where it's Pugilistic Boy, as you can see there. So, people, without further ado, we're going to let you get off tonight. I've got some other content to record for my channel to drop tomorrow. So we will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, we will be back next week. That will be the last one for the year. So anything that does happen after that will take place. We'll talk about it in January. So yeah, peace out from me.
Salute.
And we're gone.